All right, guys, welcome to French Brothers Podcast, episode 2 with Mrs. Corrine Bachman. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
So, as everybody knows, Corrine is our vice president / owner. I know your busy schedule. You got a lot going on. Appreciate you joining us, though. So, you joined French Brothers in 2006-ish?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, walk me through that. How did you get to French Brothers?
Oh, interesting story. We had just moved back to town. My husband was military, and I was looking for a job. Pretty much my first job since newly being married, so 25 years later, looking for a job. I went back to college late in life because my husband, again in the Air Force, moved around, and I didn't finish college when we were married early. So at 40, went back to college, got a degree in design. Always been interested in design. From the time I was little, I was redecorating my bedroom, I was making my own clothes, did lots of drawing and painting and whatnot. So out of high school, I really wanted to be an architect. So when my husband and I got married, we moved down to San Diego. We went to college. I started in an architecture program. Had to move and didn't get to finish it. So when I went back to college, I ended up getting a graphic design degree. So I came to town and was looking for work. I ended up working at a furniture store that was owned by one of their good friends, the Messers. And I started doing displays in furnishings. And Tom's wife, Renee, actually met me in there one day, and she's like, I think you could perhaps, do some work with our company. So it intrigued me, and came and visited with Tom and Jim one afternoon. Kind of got an idea of what they were looking for. And as an independent consultant, I started working with them, doing design boards, coming up with house schemes on finishes and different things. Started working with customers slowly, and again, it was just as a consultant.
Nice.
So it was really fun. That's how I got started with them. It evolved into full-time work, and then a partnership, and then a full-fledged owner.
So how long after you started did the partnership come around?
Probably about 2 years.
Okay.
2 years of working with them. It was a good relationship from the start. So I think the beauty of how it evolved was they each had their expertises, Jim in construction, Tom in business management, but to their credit, they knew they were lacking the design element of taking them to the next level, and in walks Corrine.
You were the missing piece.
Yeah, it was kind of cool the way it just evolved, and then we each kind of had our focuses as we grew the company. Our different hats that we wore as a small company in the earlier times. We each did a lot of different things.
Sure.
I took on sales, which wasn't my forte, I fully admit, but somebody needed to do it. So I was heading up sales, and at that time we were, at the very beginning, partnering with a local real estate company, and then we brought sales in-house and started hiring our sales folks. And that part of the business is so integral to being successful that we went to a lot of training, national training seminars on sales and sales management and sales leadership in the home building industry. So I grew in the company really learning a lot about that. And the design aspect was just comfortable and easy for me. I knew how to do that, but the sales side was a lot harder. I actually have a minor in marketing, so I took on marketing at the time as well.
Wore a lot of hats back in the day.
We all did. We all did. So that's how it all started.
That's very interesting. I didn't know some of that, so that's really good to know. Yeah. So joining French Brothers, was it intimidating? Did you feel comfortable walking in? What was your mindset coming in?
Good question, Brian. I've always been kind of a confident person, so I wasn't intimidated initially. I just
Initially.
I just knew that I wanted to do it, and it was mostly up my alley. I wasn't in home building, obviously, but I had studied some architecture. I loved interior design, so it kind of was a good marrying of those skills. However, I did not understand how much of a man's world it was over 20 years ago.
Sure.
That has since changed quite a bit in our industry, but at the time it was very much a man's industry and a white man's industry at that. And I think that I just had to learn the ropes, and I think the best thing about a woman coming into that is just knowing that I don't know all the things I don't know.
Sure.
So then it's learning as fast as you can and displaying competence in what you're doing so that they then trust you. I will admit there were a few times, there were some bumps along that road where I was underestimated and intimidated and, embarrassed myself with some tears even. But I think, it's wonderful to see how our industry has evolved out of that. And I think I look at role models. Cheryl Palmer, for instance, is the CEO of Taylor Morrison, and hearing her story and how she came up, I think she's the only female of CEO of a national builder. And
Nice.
her story is remarkable and inspiring, and I love that Tom and Jim have embraced women in our industry even more so than, they did bringing me in. And I look at, our company today and the stats that we have with almost half of our people as females. So
Yeah,
I
we're
think
at
that's wonderful.
45% women in our company, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
And 45% women in our leadership team,
Yeah, that's
which is even more astounding because I think that's, not the norm.
absolutely not. So, I mean, this is a subject we really want to explore, women in the industry. That's talking to everybody throughout the company, like, hey, what do you want to talk to Corrine about? It was like women in the industry kept coming up because it's such a big thing, or it's not a big thing, but it's a big thing within our company. It's kind of the normal here. It's kind of a lot of us have only known of a bunch of women in the company, which is awesome, I think. Do you have any cool stories to go along with the women in the industry? Like do people, you tell them what industry you're in, they're like, what are you doing there? Do you have any of those type of stories?
Probably not so much. I'm pretty dull that way. However, I think I was actually having lunch with Megan this last week and hearing again how she came to us out of the industry, unfamiliar with actual home building. She had flipped some houses, but she was in the mortgage industry, in the banking industry. And so for her to be able to come into our company and Kevin have the foresight to see in her this huge potential, I think was phenomenal. And, you take Leanna, the same kind of situation. Here she was in the banking industry, and she answered the want ad to come to work for Megan as a builder, not having that experience. But I love that our company doesn't set boundaries on somebody getting a job within our company just because they don't have specific experience in that role. And so for the females to take on those, notorious male roles without even the experience behind them, I think is a great story or a testament to our company in that way.
So that's a great point. What advice would you give women trying to enter the industry, or what advice would you give them to say, hey, you need to join us, like this is the industry for you? What would your guidance be to them, young or old?
That's interesting because I just had a chat with Thomas's daughter this last week when she was on spring break and she was hanging out in the office, and her dad, Thomas, asked her to come talk to me and interview me for what a designer does and how you get there and, what are those steps look like. He's preparing her well, and I think that's
great.
fantastic. But I would say, You know, too often in our industry, women are slotted in either sales, marketing, or design. And while those are fantastic roles, they're near and dear to my heart, I'm astounded to see the ladies in the field that are just kicking butt. You know,
Absolutely.
I think of Cece, for instance, and how she took on that warranty management role that was floundering and not doing well and has really turned it around. And I believe that is because women have some not better skills at organization, but just a different viewpoint of how that goes. Maybe it's a more natural trait.
Sure.
And organization, attention to detail, all of those things have really served her well in her role. And I think same applies to the other ladies. When I think of Hillary and what she's done, she took that role on as a purchasing assistant with very little knowledge in the industry. Just, I don't know, she probably had about 1.5 years working under Rudy before we were, looking for a new purchasing director, and she was considered and had this, inexperience, but potential, huge potential. Sure. And, we were able to see that in her and develop her, and my gosh, does she do her job well.
Absolutely. All the women in the company.
Yeah.
So do you think there's any advantages of being a woman in the industry?
No more so than any particular group of people.
Okay.
So it's a good conversation to have. You think about anyone starting a new position, experienced or inexperienced, they have to prove themselves. In order for them to be have that credibility and taken seriously, they have to prove themselves. They have to show what they've got. So females, males, subsets, minorities, whatever it is, has to figure that out.
Okay.
I think a man has to figure that out just as much.
Sure.
So I wouldn't necessarily say in today's world that it's harder for women. Maybe a tad, but I think I love how the world has changed in that particular instance, especially in our industry.
So speaking of our industry and women, if we're fast forwarding, say, 15 years, where do you think we're at as far as women to men ratio? About the same, more?
No, we've got 10% women in our industry overall nationally. So we need to get to 50.
Right.
I don't know the statistics of women to men on the planet, but when we think about the particular industry, it's still infant in women being a dominant factor in it. So I believe that we've got a lot of room to grow in that area. When I said earlier that Cheryl Palmer is, I think, the only female CEO of a national builder. Well, by golly, there's 100 national builders, so we got to change that.
How do you see your role fitting into that to bring in more women into our industry? Is it talking more, going to conferences, maybe speaking on what it's been like for you, the advantages? Do you see your role growing as far as trying to get more women into our industry?
Absolutely. I wouldn't say that I was instrumental in our company getting almost 50% in our industry, in our employment, but I think having a female owner kind of lends itself to that being more okay.
Sure.
So the fact that Tom and Jim aren't biased against women. In fact, I would even say it's the opposite. They think in general that women can do anything, and maybe even anything better than men.
Facts.
It's been proven to them over time on some of the hires that they've had. So they set it from the top down that we are completely good with hiring women in our industry. And I think that says a lot. So my particular role, when I think of who I can influence in my sphere, it is really about talking about how exciting our industry is. I went a couple of years ago to a conference in Scottsdale. It was Women in Residential Construction conference. And what a phenomenal experience that was in empowering women to connect within themselves across the nation, because it's a national conference, that they can identify with one another of some of the struggles that others have had in the past and how they've overcome them. There was this one female owner of a company, a builder in Utah. She was young. She was 26 and started her own home building company. Now, she came from a home building family, so she had a little bit of experience, but now she's running the show, her own particular company, and out there in the field. And she gave the most fantastic advice I'd heard anyone. And maybe it is a female trait in that she just, whenever she didn't know anything, she just asked. She was in the field constantly asking trades, how do you do that? And why are you doing it that way? And so it disarmed the trade partners enough to just open up and share with her how they did stuff. And that's how she learned. And so I connected with her actually this last IBS in one of the seminars that we had. She was speaking, and I went up to her afterwards and I said, I remember you about 4 years ago. And look at you now, speaking at IBS, and I give her great kudos for
So yeah, that's a
that
huge
growth.
accomplishment.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So maybe women are just more vulnerable and let down their defenses in asking all the questions so they can grow faster even.
Sure.
Whereas men may sometimes tend to not want to ask
Have bigger egos?
for directions.
Fair enough. So if you had to give one piece of advice to women currently in the industry, what would that one piece of advice be?
Sky's the limit.
Sky's the limit.
Yeah, don't put yourself in a niche. If you're a designer, or if you're a salesperson or a purchasing assistant, whatever it is, broaden your ideas to what else could you learn.
Sure.
Kayla's an excellent example of just give it to me. I'll figure it out. I'll learn. I'll do. And she has been able to take on so many different tasks within our company, within our office, that are outside of her particular purview, and just blown us away with how competent she is. So having that mindset of I can do anything, I think would be the biggest piece of advice.
That's great advice. It's great advice for anybody.
Yes.
Not just women.
Absolutely. Anyone.
So we're going to transition into talking about trends.
Okay.
You're a designer at heart, right? So we want to look at what trends are popular in 2023.
Okay.
So let's kind of talk about that.
Well, I absolutely keep up with design trends, and I subscribe to a lot of different online magazines or newsletters in different aspects of design, not just in home building, because design encompasses our whole world. Fashion, architecture, colors, furniture, whatever it is, design is an element of it. So I broaden my look on how design trends are growing in our industry and outside our industry and how they connect. At IBS this last January when we went, the word of the year was biophilic. And that's, I heard it in every seminar I went to, was biophilic this and biophilic that. And all that means is nature inspired.
Okay.
So that is our new trend, moving away from 21 and 22, where it was definitely more hard lines, hard surfaces, different aspects that were colder, cooler kind of design. Today it is more about natural elements, textures, woods are back. It's interesting. We've all gotten rid of our wood cabinetry or stained cabinetry to painted cabinetry, which it's so cyclic. Back in the 80s and the 90s, it was only about stained cabinetry. And
Right.
today, in general, we're back there again. Painted cabinetry is not nearly as popular as it was for the last 5 years. Today, if you look at all of the new kitchen designs, it's all about stained cabinetry. Still light and bright, not the heavy and getting rid of the undertones of yellow and golden oak that was everywhere. But it's a beauty in that particular element. And then you incorporate two of the most popular colors today are blue and green, and those are very natural colors in our environments. So adding those in, it's not just gray and white. In fact, Adam and I sat in a master's seminar, and this design lady was the last to speak. Do you remember that, Adam?
I do.
That was super interesting about how gray and white design has been so popular for the last 7 to 8 years across the country. And yet, when you look at those individual colors, they actually, living in that environment, produce a depressed emotion. So there we have been filling our homes with gray and white, unbeknownst to the reality is we're depressing ourselves. So anyways, that's on the way out. I don't think white actually ever goes out, classic white. That is still a big element in design today. But mixing it with those natural fibers, wickers, the green is back from the 60s. It's probably a different green. It's not so avocado-y as it was in the 60s. But it's just a real big part of design today.
So are we going to see shag carpet come back? Or?
I don't think so. I don't think so. No grooviness there. No.
So what do you think drives the trends?
That's an excellent question. What drives trends? I think our states of mind. So coming out of COVID, being cooped up at home has really changed people's psyche and their emotions, looking for what was missed over the last couple of years in their lives. And so I think that is what evolves into design trends. People are looking for outdoorness because they were stuck indoors for so long. That outdoorness is all about that biophilicness. So we kind of follow with what's going on in the world. You know, I believe that really does influence our new trends.
Okay. So trends, they always say trends come back, right? What do you think the life cycle is to come back into popularity once it goes out?
20 years.
20 years?
It's about a 20-year trend.
That's interesting.
It is because, what was it? Back in 2000, polished brass was so popular as a hardware. Faucets, knobs, hinges, whatever it was, polished brass. And then we saw that completely go away, and oil rub bronze came in as the finish of everything. Well, look at today. Gold is back.
Back to gold.
Gold is back, and it's 2023. So it is. It's about a 20-year trend cycle in general.
Interesting. What trends did you hate? There's got to be a trend you're like, why?
Please don't come back.
Please don't come back. Stay away.
Shag carpet would be one. Low ceilings.
Okay.
Low ceilings were popular for a while, even throughout a prolific building era when it wasn't all about cost. They still built low ceilings. Today and in the long ago past, high ceilings were everywhere. So I love that, and I don't want to see the low ceilings come back.
Do you see that coming back?
I don't know. We're not 20 years out of that yet. I'm going to just keep my fingers crossed and hope that it
can
doesn't
stay away.
come back. What is another trend? I am not a ultra modern kind of taste.
Okay.
I love contemporary, but that's different than modern. Modern is a little bit too harsh and hard and straight. There's practically no curves in modern. Contemporary allows for curves, and I think our world isn't that straight. We need the curves.
We need the curves. So you constantly read on trends. You're looking at magazines. You're looking at everything new. Do you want to go home and change your home all the time?
All the time.
Okay. Is John go crazy for that?
Oh, that's too funny. I am just getting ready to gut my kitchen and redo it.
Oh, okay.
And it was a hard sell to my husband because there's nothing wrong with my kitchen other than it's 20 years old. And I'm like, honey, you don't understand. I'm around design every single day of my life. And I just have this really need to refresh what we have going here in our particular home. So yeah, it was a little bit of a rocky road, but he's fully on board now. We haven't started the project yet. I've just got design boards going. I think that is one of those sides to a designer that is a challenge because I think about, what you see out there all the time and how, it's hard to pick one design style for your home as a designer. I love a lot of different looks and everything, and I can't afford to just keep changing, nor is it practical. So it's really kind of trying to make it as timeless as possible, and that was one of the give and takes that we talked about. This will be my last kitchen design for the rest of my life.
So what style kitchen are you going with?
Just a fresh. My kitchen presently is very dark and warm, very cozy. I've got a mid-tone maple stained cabinetry with kind of older-fashioned door fronts. So there's that. I thought I might just change all the door fronts to a contemporary, shaker style, but I'm not happy with the color either. So we've got to change the whole thing. I've got dark, it's called tobacco granite. It's a dark brown and a little bit of like reddiness through it. That's pretty. I've got a dark tan tile floor throughout. So very definitely dated look. Again, nothing wrong with it, but I'm looking for something fresher and more airy and bright. So I'm going to go with a very light washed rift cut oak stained cabinetry and a like a concrete gray countertop.
Nice.
And a light backsplash and a light kind of taupey large format tile throughout.
Okay.
Yep.
So you're starting in the kitchen. Are you going to work your way through the rest of the home?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Does John know that yet?
Yes, he does.
Okay.
I am building a casita.
Oh, are you?
Yep.
Where?
Just building the pad right now. Cal is digging the pad today.
Nice.
And you guys are doing whatever.
Just to the north of my property.
Okay.
So it's kind of connected to the backyard pool. It's kind of a pool house, kids. I'm doing a bunk room and all that kind of stuff for I'm trying to entice the grandkids to come home.
Come over. If that view doesn't do it, they're not.
Me and Brian might just show up.
There you go. I need to have more gatherings to enjoy it.
So final question talking about trends is New Mexico always seems to be behind the curve on trends. Why do you think that is?
It's not just New Mexico. It's
Okay.
the center of the country. So design trends typically start at each of the coasts.
Okay.
California, New York, Florida. And they move their way into the center of the country. So it always takes longer for us to get to it.
Okay.
And the fact that I think New Mexico ranks, number 49 in so many things that we're just slow to change. But then our trends stay here longer without moving. So a design trend in California will come and go quicker than a design trend in New Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you say they start on the coast. Are they the same trends or are they different trends?
No, they're the same. I think the industry in general coordinates itself.
Okay.
Right? There are, folks that sell product on both ends of the coast, so they all have to sell the same thing, basically. What I would say is different is pockets of the country that aren't exposed to, metropolitan ideas. So even in New York, when we say a trend starts in New York, it's New York City. It's not Buffalo.
Right.
A big difference. But Buffalo is influenced by New York City shortly thereafter. So, and then you get other small pockets of smaller towns. Saratoga, New York, it's a small community. It doesn't get nearly quickly ensconced in that new trend as the larger cities do. So, and then when you look at the country, there are our major areas like Dallas or Chicago or Phoenix. Those areas get influenced a lot quicker than even, eastern part of California. So the trend definitely starts on the outside, goes to some big cities, and then fills the gaps along the way.
Do you see people fighting the trend?
Oh, yeah. I read tons of articles on House that really talk about people. When I say articles, I'm reading the articles and then I read the comments on the articles. And it's very fascinating to see how some folks, are just averse to trend ideas.
Sure.
And in fact, that was the big conversation my husband and I had when we talk about redoing our kitchen is, don't make it trendy. Don't make it something that you're going to be tired of in 5 to 10 years. Figure out how to make it timeless. And I believe that too. I think that's a fantastic approach to most design, make it timeless. And yet you can add some current trendiness to that isn't the foundation or the higher cost items. You can
Sure.
add that in a way that just augments and complements your timeless design.
So how do you make sure you hit that timeless design?
Gut. I believe looking at trends and weeding out the ones that I don't feel are going to stick long.
Okay.
So I believe stained cabinetry is going to stick for quite a while. So I don't think that's a short-lived trend.
Okay.
I think white Carrera tops are not going to go away. They are super popular. That's not what I'm choosing, but I'm just saying those kinds of things. There are some trends that are timeless.
Do you think our region influences them at all? So going back to like the stained cabinetry, the fact that the stained wood can kind of lend itself to the Southwest style, do you think that's something our region like helps push upon that trend that might help us like hold on to it a little longer?
Perhaps, yes, I think so. I would even go so far, Adam, as to say where there are more forests, say Seattle, Tennessee, they have a tendency to gravitate more towards woody things that are more natural.
That makes a lot of sense.
So in the Southwest, even though we don't have many forests, we still have some. Our Southwest design style is very unique to our region, and folks come here really wanting that look. So we think about what we're building in homes, our what we call flat tops or concealed pitch homes. You don't see those in other areas too much. You see them in Arizona. That's about it.
Yeah.
Arizona and New Mexico do concealed pitch.
Very foreign
I
to
don't
people.
really know many other states that embrace that look. And so when folks come to New Mexico, I've visited with lots of customers over the years, they're looking for a bit of that flair that's different than they might have gotten elsewhere, colonial or more traditional style.
Sure.
I do have some folks that I've visited with that come to New Mexico and want to build a, Texas brick home with a 12-12 pitch that just looks super out of place in our environment. And yet that's what they love, and that's what they want. So good luck, build that. That's not what we do.
If I take you back to when you first walked in the door to talk to Tom and Jim, could you imagine where you're at today, that day? If I said, hey, this is what it's going to look like, you're going to be sitting down talking about a podcast with me in 20 years, what would your initial reaction be?
I am a spiritual person, and I remember praying when I moved to town for a job, and I had no idea what I was praying for. And I believe fully that, God looks out for us far more than we look out for ourselves, or he wants better than we could far imagine. I came to town looking for a graphic design job. And I applied at a advertising company and at the newspaper. Wow. And didn't get either of those jobs, thankfully. God closed those doors. And instead got this opportunity to combine so many of my interests and talents into this one job that I was forever grateful. Mm-hmm. So could I imagine becoming an owner at that time? Absolutely not. Had no idea the breadth of the industry at that time. And plus, we were a fairly small company when I first started. We built about 25 homes a year at the most, I think, back then. And I didn't know what it looked like, so no, I couldn't have imagined it. But I love looking back today, seeing from whence I came, and here I am now, and it's phenomenal, and I'm just so humbled by it. I do have to tell you one funny story, though.
Let's hear it.
One of those early days of visiting with Tom and Jim, that is in the day when Tom's office was where that LeGrand conference room is. Okay. That was Tom's office at the time, and our offices stopped like at the kitchen.
Right.
That was it. So I came in and we were talking, and as I turned around to leave, he said, "Wait a minute." And he got out from behind his desk and he walked over to me and he reached down on the back of my pant leg and he pulled the strip of tape that was on there that gives you the size on the back of your jeans. Do you know what strip I'm talking about?
Oh, the sticky ones.
Yeah.
It's folded.
Oh yeah,
but it's folded and it's like about 8 inches long and 2 inches wide, and it's a strip. And he pulled it off and he gave it to me. And he says, "I didn't want you to go out in public with this," but I had already been out in public and he had already seen it, and it was one of those super embarrassing moments of, oh my gosh, you just saw the size of my jeans. So we had a fun relationship from the get-go of just banter and enjoyment, and I knew it was a good fit, and
sure.
I was hoping for a long-term relationship. My husband was still active duty at the time, and I didn't know what our future looked like, but he was coming up on his 20 years, and we were talking about whether he was getting out or not. And honestly, he decided to retire, and we decided to stay here in large part to this job. So
that's amazing.
I love it.
That's amazing. One final question. What is one question you wish I had asked you, and how would you have answered it? Putting you on the spot.
Oh my gosh.
It's a thinker.
It is a thinker. You can edit all of the length of thinking. Maybe what are you most passionate about?
Let's go there.
Okay. What am I most passionate about? It's probably not going to surprise any of you. I am most passionate about design. And like I said earlier, it is really all about the full aspect of design. When I am driving down the freeway, I look at buildings, I look at typefaces on billboards, I look at color combinations, I see how roads intertwine and who designed that and how did they do that and who masterminded this layout of whatever. I just constantly look at things that way. So I love it.
You're the type that goes to a restaurant and you just look around.
I do. The finishes and how the lighting affects this or that and how they may have done it a little different or better or whatnot. I do poke holes at things sometimes. But mostly I just enjoy seeing the ideas that people have using different materials and how it all comes together.
It's an interesting world that's always changing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Sure. Well, Corrine, we appreciate your time. I know you're busy, but we appreciate you taking the time out to talk to us.
Oh, it's been fun.
It's been a good time.
Yeah.
That's all we got, guys. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, guys.
Done.
Cut.
That was awesome.
That was awesome.
I think this would be a very good
I love the way you did that.
Shut up. It's my show.
Test the waters.
And you did phenomenal.
You did great. I appreciate it.
You did.
Good.
You
High
made
fives
it
for
so
everybody,
comfortable.
right?
Yep.
Sorry for my zombie arm.
Oh, yeah. Bloody stump.